Chapter 1. The Small House at the Edge of Town. Maria lived in a small house at the edge of town. The house was old, with walls that had cracks like lines on a tired face. The roof sometimes leaked when the rain was heavy, but Maria kept everything inside clean and bright. She was a single mother, and her whole world was her son, Daniel. Daniel was 9 years old. He was quiet, thoughtful, and sometimes shy. Other children in the neighborhood liked to run and shout in the streets, but Daniel often stayed inside, drawing pictures or reading small books from the library. Maria worried about him. She wanted him to feel free, to laugh, and to be confident in the world. But she also knew Daniel was different, and she loved him exactly as he was. Every morning, Maria woke up early. She worked in a bakery, starting at 4 o'clock. The smell of fresh bread followed her home, clinging to her hair and her clothes. She came back tired, but she always smiled at Daniel. "Good morning, my little artist," she would say, touching his cheek. Daniel would smile shyly. "Good morning, Mama. Did you bring any bread today?" And Maria would always pull out a small loaf, still warm. She never forgot. Even when she was tired, even when her hands ached from kneading dough for hours, she always remembered to bring something home for him. In the evenings, after dinner, Maria and Daniel sat in the small garden behind their house. It wasn't much, just a few flowers and one old tree. But to Maria, it was a sacred place. She called it their silent garden, because it was where she and Daniel could talk about anything without the noise of the world. One night, as they sat under the tree, Daniel asked softly, "Mama, why do you work so much? You look so tired every day." Maria smiled, though her heart felt heavy. She brushed his hair gently with her fingers. "Because I want you to have what I didn't, Daniel. I want you to have a chance, education, dreams, a future. For that, I must work hard." Daniel lowered his eyes. He didn't fully understand, but he felt the weight of his mother's words. He wanted to tell her he would work hard too, that he would make her proud. But instead, he only said, "I'll draw something for you tomorrow, something beautiful." Maria kissed his forehead. "That's all I ever need, my son." And in that small, silent garden, surrounded by shadows and stars, the bond between mother and son grew deeper, like roots under the earth, silent, strong, and unseen by others, but holding everything together. Chapter 2. The Letter from School. One afternoon, when Maria returned home from the bakery, she found an envelope on the small wooden table in the kitchen. The envelope was from Daniel's school. Her heart beat faster as she held it in her hands. Letters from school usually meant something important, sometimes good, sometimes not. She took a deep breath, sat down, and slowly opened it. The letter said that Daniel was struggling in his studies. His teacher explained that he was falling behind in mathematics and reading. He often seemed distracted in class, looking out the window or drawing in his notebook instead of listening. The teacher also mentioned that Daniel did not talk much to other students, which made it hard for him to make friends. Maria's hands trembled slightly as she put the letter down. She felt a mixture of sadness, worry, and guilt. She asked herself, "Am I doing enough? Maybe I am too busy. Maybe Daniel feels alone when I am gone." She wanted to cry, but she stopped herself. Crying would not help Daniel. She needed to stay strong. That evening, when Daniel came home, Maria waited for the right moment. They ate dinner together. Simple rice, vegetables, and a small piece of fish that Maria had saved money to buy. After dinner, they went to their silent garden as usual. The stars were shining, and the air smelled of earth and flowers. "Daniel," Maria began softly, "I received a letter from your school today." Daniel's eyes widened, and his hands tightened around the book he was holding. "A letter? What did it say?" he asked carefully. Maria did not want to scare him. She smiled gently. "It says that you are very creative, but sometimes you find it difficult to focus in class. It says that maybe you need more help with your reading and mathematics." Daniel looked down at the ground. His face turned red, and he whispered, "I'm sorry, Mama. I try, but the numbers, they dance around in my head, and when I read, the words become blurry. I don't want to be stupid." Maria's heart broke at his words. She immediately reached out and lifted his chin so he would look into her eyes. "Listen to me, Daniel. You are not stupid. You are my son, and you are full of light. Every child learns in a different way. Some learn quickly, some take time, but none of that changes their worth." Tears filled Daniel's eyes. "But the other children laugh at me sometimes. They think I am slow." Maria hugged him tightly, pressing his small body against her chest. "Let them laugh. You don't need to be like everyone else. You only need to be you. And I will help you. We will work together. Every night after dinner, we will study here in the garden. Slowly, step by step. I promise you, Daniel, you will grow." Daniel's tears slid down his cheeks, but he smiled a little. "Do you really think I can?" Maria kissed his forehead, her voice firm and warm. "I don't just think, Daniel, I know." From that night, their garden changed. It was no longer only a place of quiet talk and dreams. It became a small classroom under the stars. Maria, tired from long hours at the bakery, would sit with Daniel and patiently go through his lessons. Sometimes it was hard, her eyes heavy, her hands aching, but she never let Daniel see her weakness. She encouraged him, praised every small success, and reminded him that learning was a journey, not a race. And in the silent garden, Daniel began to believe in himself little by little, because his mother's love made him strong. Chapter 3: The Sacrifice. The weeks passed, and Maria and Daniel kept their promise. Every night after dinner, they studied in the silent garden. Sometimes the lessons went well. Daniel would suddenly understand a math problem or read a page without stopping, and his face would light up with pride. Other nights were harder. He grew frustrated, rubbing his head and saying, "I can't do it, Mama. It's too hard." Whenever that happened, Maria would smile patiently. "Remember, Daniel, even the tallest tree starts from a small seed. You only need time, water, and sunlight. We will keep going." But inside, Maria was worried. She wanted Daniel to succeed, but she knew her time and energy were limited. Working at the bakery paid only enough for rent, food, and a few school supplies. The extra hours she spent teaching him meant she was sleeping less and working more slowly during the day. Her body grew weaker. Sometimes her back hurt so much she had to sit down while kneading the dough. Sometimes her hands shook from tiredness. But when she thought of Daniel, she forced herself to continue. One evening, her boss at the bakery pulled her aside. "Maria," he said kindly, "you are one of my best workers, but lately you seem very tired. The bread is not as soft as before. Is everything all right?" Maria bowed her head in apology. "I am sorry, sir. I will do better. Please don't worry." The truth was that Maria had already taken extra shifts without telling Daniel. When the bakery needed help in the afternoons, she stayed longer, earning a little more money to buy new books and learning tools for her son. She never told Daniel because she didn't want him to feel guilty. To him, she wanted to appear strong, unbreakable. At home, Daniel sometimes noticed her exhaustion. He would touch her hands and whisper, "Mama, your hands are red. Do they hurt?" Maria would quickly hide them and smile. "No, my love, they are just a little tired, but they are happy because they hold you." Daniel didn't always believe her, but he trusted her words. He continued to study hard, wanting to make her proud. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel came to Maria with a small box made of cardboard. On the top, he had drawn a big sun and the words, "For Mama." Inside were tiny paper stars he had folded himself. On each star he had written a word: love, hope, courage, smile, bread, garden, light. Maria opened the box slowly, tears filling her eyes. "What is this, Daniel?" "It's for you," Daniel said shyly. "Every time you feel tired, you can take one star, and each word will remind you that you are strong and that I love you." Maria hugged him so tightly that he laughed. In that moment, all her pain and fatigue felt lighter. Her sacrifices, her hidden struggles were worth it. That night, as she watched Daniel sleep, Maria whispered to herself, "I will give everything I have. Even if my body breaks, I will not let his dreams break. That is what it means to be a mother." The moon shone softly over the silent garden, and Maria prayed that her love would be enough to guide her son through every storm ahead. Chapter 4. The Storm. The summer came with heavy rains. Dark clouds often covered the sky, and the streets of the town filled with water. Maria worried about their small house. The roof leaked, and the walls were weak. But she never showed her fear to Daniel. She wanted him to feel safe. One evening, while Maria was still at the bakery, finishing her shift, the rain grew stronger. Thunder shook the windows, and lightning cut across the sky. Daniel was at home, waiting for her. He sat by the window, holding the box of paper stars he had made for her, whispering the words he had written: love, courage, hope. Suddenly, the power went out. The house became dark, and the sound of the storm grew louder. Daniel felt his heart beating fast. He ran to the silent garden, even though the rain was pouring down. The garden was full of water, and the old tree bent dangerously in the wind. At that moment, Maria arrived, running through the rain. She was soaked, her hair sticking to her face, her clothes heavy with water. When she saw Daniel standing in the garden, she shouted, "Daniel, come inside!" Daniel ran to her arms, trembling. "Mama, I was scared. I didn't want the tree to fall. I didn't want our garden to break." Maria hugged him tightly, even as the rain fell harder. "Listen to me, Daniel. Gardens can be rebuilt. Houses can be fixed. But you, my son, you cannot be replaced. You are what matters most." They went inside, dripping wet. The roof leaked, and water fell onto the floor. Maria quickly lit a small candle, and they sat together in the dim light. Outside the storm roared, but inside Maria's voice was calm. "Do you remember what we talked about? About storms in life?" Daniel nodded weakly. "You said storms are not forever. They pass." Maria smiled, touching his face. "Yes, this storm too will pass. What matters is that we stay together, and we do not lose hope." Hours passed before the storm finally grew quiet. The garden was a mess, with broken branches and flowers washed away. The roof of the house had holes, and water covered the floor. Maria felt her heart sink. How could she repair everything with so little money? But when she looked at Daniel, who was falling asleep in her arms, she felt her strength return. She whispered, "As long as I have you, nothing is lost." The next morning the sun returned. The neighbors came to help, offering tools and wood. Maria worked alongside them, her hands bleeding from the effort, but she did not complain. Daniel also tried to help, carrying small buckets of water and picking up broken pieces of wood. That night, even though the garden looked broken, Maria and Daniel sat together under the tree that still stood. It was damaged, but it had not fallen. "Mama," Daniel said quietly, "I thought the storm would take everything away, but it didn't." Maria smiled, her eyes shining with tiredness and pride. "Yes, Daniel, that is the truth of storms. They test us, they break some things, but they cannot take away love, and love is stronger than any storm." In that moment, Daniel understood something he had never understood before. His mother's love was not just gentle like sunlight. It was also strong like roots in the earth, holding everything steady, even when the winds blew hardest. And though the silent garden was scarred, it was still alive, just like them. Chapter 5. The Silent Garden Blooms. Years passed, and Daniel grew taller, stronger, and wiser. The boy who once hid in books and drawings became a young man with steady eyes and a quiet confidence. His teachers noticed the change. They said he worked harder than anyone else, and though he still struggled sometimes, he never gave up. Maria continued her work at the bakery. Her hair turned a little grayer each year, and her hands carried more lines, but her smile never faded when she looked at her son. She had given him her strength, her patience, and her love, and Daniel carried all of it with him. One spring morning, Daniel came home with exciting news. He held a letter in his hands, much like the one Maria had received years ago, but this time it was different. "Mama," he said, his voice trembling, "I was accepted into the art program at the city university. They gave me a scholarship." Maria's eyes filled with tears. Her throat tightened, and she could hardly speak. She hugged him with all her strength. "Oh, Daniel, my little artist, you did it. You really did it." Daniel held her close. "No, Mama, we did it. You never gave up on me. This is your victory, too." That night, they sat in the silent garden together, just like when Daniel was a child. The garden had changed over the years. After the great storm, they had planted new flowers. The old tree still stood, stronger than before, its branches stretching toward the sky. The garden was no longer broken, it was blooming. Daniel looked around and said softly, "This garden is like us, Mama. It was hurt, but it grew back. It became more beautiful because it survived." Maria smiled, stroking his hair. "Yes, Daniel, love makes things grow, even after storms." When the day came for Daniel to leave for the university, Maria prepared a small bag for him. Inside, she placed the cardboard box filled with the paper stars he had made long ago. She had kept it safe all those years. The paper was old, the edges curled, but the words were still clear. Love, courage, hope, smile, garden, light. "Take this with you," she said. "Whenever you feel lost, remember these words. They will guide you, just as you guided me." Daniel hugged the box to his chest, his eyes filled with tears. "Mama, I don't need stars on paper anymore. I carry your stars inside me. Your love has built who I am." Maria could not speak. She simply held him, knowing that her sacrifices had not been in vain. Months later, when Daniel returned home for the first holiday, he brought with him a painting. It was large, full of colors and alive with meaning. He showed it to Maria proudly. The painting was of their silent garden. The old tree stood tall, the flowers bloomed, and in the center were two figures, a mother and her son, sitting side by side under the stars. "I painted this for you, Mama, because this garden is not just a place, it is our story. It is your love." Maria's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of peace. She realized that her love had taken root deep inside her son, and it would bloom for the rest of his life. The silent garden, once small and fragile, had become a symbol of strength, sacrifice, and unshakable love. And as long as the tree stood, so too would the memory of a mother's heart that had given everything, asking for nothing in return. Thanks for watching. Take action today, not tomorrow.
Press subscribe. And let's keep learning together. You're doing great. See you in the next one. Stay strong.